Jake Morrison dragged himself through the narrow corridor of Gateway 7 station, every muscle in his body screaming for rest. 2 weeks hauling mining equipment to the outer colonies had left him exhausted. His boots made soft thuds against the metal floor as he approached his quarters. All he wanted was to collapse into bed and sleep for the next 12 hours. He pressed his palm against the door scanner and waited for the familiar beep. The door slid open with a quiet hiss. Jake stepped inside, already pulling off his jacket, when he froze. Someone was sitting on his couch. Not just someone. A woman. No, not quite human. Her skin had a faint silvery shimmer in the dim light of his apartment. Strange markings glowed softly along her temples and down her arms. Her eyes were an impossible violet color that seemed to shift when she turned to look at him. "Hello, Jake Morrison," she said calmly, as if sitting in a stranger's apartment was the most normal thing in the world. Jake's hand moved toward the emergency alert button near the door, but he stopped. The woman held up her hands in a peaceful gesture. She wore elegant clothing that looked like it cost more than his entire ship. A small device clipped to her collar hummed softly, translating her words into perfect English. "Please do not be alarmed," she continued. "My name is Lysara Veltheran. I am the third princess of the Valerian Empire. I have invoked the sanctuary bond, and I have chosen you as my protector." Jake blinked several times, wondering if exhaustion was making him hallucinate. "I'm sorry. What?" Lysara stood gracefully. She was tall, nearly matching his height. "I understand this is unexpected. May I explain?" "You're in my apartment," Jake said slowly. "Yeah, I think an explanation would be good." She gestured toward the couch, inviting him to sit in his own home. Jake almost laughed at the absurdity but decided to play along. He sat down carefully, keeping some distance between them. "The sanctuary bond is an ancient tradition among my people," Lysara began. "When a member of the royal family faces danger, they may seek protection from someone they believe to be trustworthy. This creates a sacred bond. Once invoked, I cannot be taken by force without severe consequences to those who try." "Okay," Jake said, trying to process this. "But why me? I'm just a cargo pilot. I haul freight. There must be 100 better candidates on this station alone." "I have been watching you," Lysara said, then quickly added, "Not in a disturbing way. I have been studying humans since our people made contact 6 months ago. I reviewed many records of pilots and traders. Your file showed something interesting. You have never broken a contract. You have never abandoned your cargo even when it was dangerous to continue. 3 years ago, you risked your life to deliver medical supplies to a quarantined colony when no one else would go." Jake remembered that run. He had barely made it out before the colony was sealed off completely. "I was just doing my job." "Exactly," Lysara said, leaning forward slightly. "You did your job even when it was difficult, even when it was dangerous. This told me something about your character. You are reliable. You keep your word. These qualities are rare, even among my own people." "So you're in some kind of trouble?" Jake asked. Lysara's expression darkened. "I am being forced into a political marriage. The man I am meant to marry is Warlord Carvex of the Hrothian Dominion. The marriage would create a military alliance between our peoples. But Carvex is cruel. Under his rule, I would have no freedom, no voice, no life of my own. I would become a trophy, nothing more." Jake felt a surge of sympathy despite the bizarre situation. "Can't you just say no?" "In your culture, perhaps that would be possible," Lysara said sadly. "Among the Valerian nobility, duty comes before personal wishes. My father, the Emperor, has already agreed to the arrangement. If I simply refused, it would shame my family and potentially lead to war. But the sanctuary bond is different. It is older than the Empire itself. Even my father must respect it, at least temporarily." "Temporarily?" Jake caught the word. "The bond must be honored for a period of 1 lunar cycle, roughly 30 days in your measurement. During that time, you are my legal protector under Valerian law. After that, the situation becomes more complicated." Jake rubbed his face with both hands. This was insane. He was a freight pilot, not a bodyguard for alien royalty. Look, I'm flattered or whatever, but I'm not qualified for this. I don't know anything about protecting princesses or dealing with intergalactic politics. I am not asking you to fight battles, Lysara said gently. I am asking you to let me stay here, to honor the bond. Your acceptance is all that is required. And if I say no? Lysara looked away. Then I will find someone else, but I chose you for a reason, Jake Morrison. I believe you are a good man. Jake stood and walked to the small window that looked out over the docking bay. Ships came and went. Oblivious to the strange drama unfolding in his cramped apartment, he thought about the medical supply run Lysara had mentioned. He thought about the kids in that colony who would have died without those supplies. He thought about how terrified Lysara must be, running from a future she didn't want. Okay, he heard himself say. I'll do it. I'll honor your sanctuary bond or whatever it's called. When he turned around, Lysara's eyes were shining with what might have been tears. Thank you. You have my gratitude and my word that I will cause you as little trouble as possible. Yeah, well, something tells me trouble is coming whether we want it or not, Jake muttered. As if on cue, his communication panel beeped urgently. Jake answered it to find Commander Lisa Hayes glaring at him from the screen. Morrison, what the hell have you done? She demanded. I've got Valerian diplomats crawling up my ass demanding to know why you're harboring their princess. Get down to my office right now. The call ended before Jake could respond. He looked at Lysara, who gave him an apologetic smile. I told you there would be complications, she said. You could have mentioned that part first, Jake replied, but there was no real anger in his voice. That night, after hours of heated discussions with station officials and Valerian diplomats, Jake finally returned to his quarters. Lysara was still there, reading something on a holographic display. She looked up when he entered. They cannot make me leave, she said. You accepted the bond. The law is clear. Yeah, but they're not happy about it, Jake said, collapsing onto his couch. Every part of him ached even more than before. You should sleep, Lysara suggested. Take your bed. I will remain here on the couch. Jake started to argue, then remembered what she had said about the bond requiring proximity. The ritual requires us to stay close, doesn't it? Lysara nodded. For the first night, yes. It is tradition. Jake sighed. This was the weirdest day of his life. Fine, but you take the bed, I'll take the floor. That is not necessary. It's my apartment and you're a guest. Even a weird, unexpected alien princess guest. You get the bed. They argued about it for another 10 minutes before finally compromising. The bed was small but could fit 2 people if they stayed on opposite sides. Jake set up a line of pillows down the middle like a barrier. There, he said. You stay on your side, I'll stay on mine. Lysara smiled, the first real smile he had seen from her. You are a strange human, Jake Morrison. Yeah, well, you're a strange alien princess, he replied, but he was smiling too. They lay down in the darkness, the pillow barrier between them. Jake stared at the ceiling, wondering what he had gotten himself into. In less than 24 hours, his simple life had become impossibly complicated. Jake? Lysara's voice was soft in the darkness. Yeah? Thank you. Truly. Jake didn't know what to say to that, so he just said, Get some sleep, princess. As exhaustion finally claimed him, Jake's last thought was that tomorrow was going to be even crazier than today. He had no idea just how right he was. Jake woke to the sound of angry voices outside his door. For a moment he forgot where he was and why his bed felt more crowded than usual. Then he saw the silver-skinned woman sleeping peacefully on the other side of the pillow barrier, and everything came rushing back. The pounding on his door grew louder. Jake stumbled out of bed, careful not to wake Lysara, and pressed the intercom button. Open this door immediately, a stern voice commanded. This is Ambassador Kelrin of the Valerian diplomatic mission. Jake glanced back at Lysara, who was now awake and sitting up. She looked worried but determined. He opened the door to find 3 Valerian officials in elaborate robes, flanked by 2 station security guards who looked deeply uncomfortable. Ambassador Kelrin was a tall Valerian with sharp features and cold golden eyes. He looked past Jake and addressed Lysera directly in their own language. The translator on Lysera's collar converted his words to English. "Princess, this foolishness must end. You are needed for crucial negotiations. Your family demands your immediate return." Lysera stood and walked to the doorway, her posture regal despite wearing the simple clothes Jake had lent her. "I have invoked the sanctuary bond, Ambassador. You know the law." "Laws can be bent for the greater good," Kelrin replied coldly. "Not this law," Jake interrupted, surprising himself with his boldness. "She chose me as her protector. That makes me responsible for her safety, right? So no, she's not going anywhere unless she wants to." Kelrin turned his withering gaze on Jake. "You are a simple cargo pilot meddling in affairs beyond your comprehension. The alliance with Warlord Carvex is essential for peace in 3-star systems. Then maybe you should have asked the princess what she wanted before making deals." Jake shot back. The ambassador's expression suggested he wanted to say much more, but Valerian law apparently tied his hands. He turned sharply and left, his entourage following. The security guards gave Jake sympathetic looks before leaving as well. An hour later, Jake found himself in Commander Hayes' office, getting the lecture of his lifetime. Hayes was a career military officer who had seen everything, and her patience was clearly wearing thin. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" she demanded, pacing behind her desk. "The Valarian Empire is threatening to cut off trade relations." "Trade relations, Morrison? That means thousands of jobs, billions in revenue, all potentially gone because you decided to play hero." "I didn't decide anything," Jake protested. "She showed up in my apartment and invoked some ancient law. What was I supposed to do, throw her out?" "Yes," Hayes said bluntly. Then she sighed and sat down. "No, maybe, I don't know. The legal team says you're technically in the right. The sanctuary bond is recognized under the diplomatic protocols we signed. But legal and smart are two different things. So what happens now?" Jake asked. "Now? Now you stay in your quarters while people way above my pay grade figure this out. And Morrison? Keep that princess safe. If something happens to her while she's under our protection, there won't be enough apologies in the galaxy to fix that mess." Jake returned to his apartment to find Lysera standing at the window, watching the ships come and go. She turned when he entered. "I am sorry for the trouble I have caused you," she said quietly. "It's not your fault," Jake replied, meaning it. "You were trying to escape a bad situation. I get that. Tell me about yourself, Jake Morrison," Lysera said, changing the subject. "I know facts from your file, but I do not know you," so Jake told her. He talked about growing up on Earth in a small town in Montana. He described the mountains and forests, things Lysera had never seen. He told her about his parents and younger sister, all lost in a transport accident when he was 20. He explained how he had taken every credit he had and bought a small cargo ship, finding freedom in the endless routes between the stars. In return, Lysera shared her own story. She described Velara Prime, her homeworld, with its crystalline forests that sang in the wind and cities that floated on massive anti-gravity platforms. She had been trained as a stellar cartographer, mapping unexplored regions of space before her royal duties had consumed that dream. Her voice held a deep sadness when she spoke of the life she had wanted versus the life she was expected to live. "On my world, we have a saying," Lysera said softly, "the brightest stars are often the loneliest. I have always felt that way, surrounded by people yet completely alone." "I know that feeling," Jake admitted. "Space is full of people, but most of the time I'm just by myself in a cockpit, going from place to place." They talked for hours, losing track of time. Jake ordered food from the station commissary, and Lysera tried her first human cuisine with mixed results. She loved the pasta but found the concept of coffee deeply disturbing. "You drink this bitter liquid to stay awake?" she asked, making a face. "Yeah, it's an acquired taste," Jake laughed. That night they settled into an easier routine. The pillow barrier between them seemed less necessary, but Jake kept it there out of respect. They talked in the darkness until sleep claimed them. Jake woke to the sound of his door being torn from its hinges. 3 figures in dark armor burst into his apartment. They moved with deadly precision, heading straight for the bedroom. Jake barely had time to register what was happening before one of them had him by the throat. "Where is the princess?" the figure demanded in accented English. Jake couldn't answer with the hand crushing his windpipe. But he didn't need to. Lysera appeared in the doorway, her eyes blazing with anger. "Release him," she commanded. The lead attacker laughed, a harsh sound. "Karvik sends his regards, Princess. He grows impatient waiting for his bride." "I will never be his bride," Lysera said coldly. What happened next was almost too fast for Jake to follow. Lysera moved like liquid lightning, her hand striking pressure points on the nearest attacker that sent him crumpling to the floor. The second attacker pulled a weapon, but Jake, despite his terror, grabbed a wrench from his toolkit and swung it hard into the alien's knee. The creature howled and dropped. The third attacker, the one who had been choking Jake, threw him aside and lunged at Lysera. They fought in brutal silence, trading blows that would have killed a normal human. Jake saw the attacker pull a knife, saw it arc toward Lysera's throat. Without thinking, he threw himself between them. The blade caught him across the ribs, a line of white-hot pain. Jake fell, but his action had given Lysera the opening she needed. She struck the attacker's wrist, disarming him, then delivered a precise strike to his neck that left him unconscious on the floor. Station security arrived moments later, alerted by the noise. They secured the 3 Krivath mercenaries, notorious bounty hunters from the outer regions. As medics worked on Jake's wound, Lysera knelt beside him, her hands shaking. "You should not have done that," she whispered. "You could have been killed." "Yeah, well," Jake managed through gritted teeth. "I'm your protector, remember? Kind of comes with the job." The Valarian medical technology sealed his wound quickly, leaving only a faint scar. As the medics worked, Jake noticed tears on Lysera's face, glowing faintly in the dim light. "I did not think humans could be so brave," she said quietly. "I wasn't being brave," Jake replied honestly. "I was terrified. But I couldn't just let them hurt you." Something shifted between them in that moment. The sanctuary bond, which had started as a legal technicality, began to feel like something more real. When they returned to bed that night, the pillow barrier seemed ridiculous. Lysera moved it aside and they lay facing each other in the darkness. "Jake," she said softly. "Yeah? Thank you for saving my life." "Thank you for saving mine first," he replied. They fell asleep that way. The distance between them closed. 2 people from different worlds finding unexpected comfort in each other's presence. Outside, the station hummed with activity. But in that small apartment, everything felt still and peaceful. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Ambassador Kelrin would return with more demands. Karvex would likely send more mercenaries. The diplomatic situation would continue to deteriorate. But for now, in the quiet darkness, Jake and Lysera had found something neither of them had expected. A genuine connection that transcended the barriers of species and culture. The sanctuary bond had brought them together out of necessity, but what was growing between them now was something else entirely, something neither of them was quite ready to name, but both could feel as surely as the artificial gravity beneath their feet. Commander Hayes came to Jake's quarters early the next morning with a grim expression and 2 cups of coffee. She handed one to Jake and glanced at Lysera, who was reading on the small couch. "We need to talk," Hayes said simply. "Privately." Jake followed her into the corridor. Hayes kept her voice low as she spoke. "The situation is getting worse. The Valarian Empire is applying serious pressure. And now Warlord Karvex is threatening military action if the princess is not returned. The station council is demanding I hand her over." "You can't do that," Jake said immediately. "The sanctuary bond—" "I know about the bond," Hayes interrupted. "And I respect it. But Morrison, this station cannot become a battleground. Too many innocent people live here." She paused, then added quietly, "But if you and the princess were not on this station, I couldn't be held responsible for where you went." Jake understood. "You're telling us to run. I'm telling you that my hands are tied if you're here. What you do with that information is up to you." Hayes met his eyes. "There's a freight hauler called the Wandering Star departing in 6 hours for the frontier colonies. Captain Danny Rodriguez is an old friend of yours, isn't he?" Jake nodded slowly. "Danny owed him several favors. If we leave, won't that make things worse? Maybe. Or maybe it gives everyone time to cool down and find a diplomatic solution. Right now, you're a pressure point. Remove the pressure and maybe cooler heads can prevail." After Hayes left, Jake explained the situation to Lysera. She listened carefully, then nodded. "She is right. As long as I am here, this station is in danger. We should go." "You understand what you're agreeing to?" Jake asked. "The frontier colonies are rough. No fancy diplomats, no royal guards. It'll just be us, Lysara smiled faintly. I think I prefer that. 3 hours later, Jake and Lysara were sealed inside cargo containers aboard the Wandering Star. Danny had asked no questions, just helped them hide among his shipment of mining equipment. The containers were modified with air supplies and basic padding, but it was still uncomfortable. I am sorry you are giving up your life for me, Lysara said in the cramped darkness. I'm not giving it up, Jake replied. I'm just taking a detour. The journey to New Prospect took 5 days. When they finally emerged from the containers, every muscle in Jake's body was stiff. New Prospect was a mining colony built on a moon orbiting a massive gas giant. The colony was little more than a collection of prefabricated buildings and rough shelters. It attracted people who wanted to live beyond the reach of normal law and order. Danny helped them disembark quietly. Stay safe, old friend, he told Jake, and try not to start any more interstellar incidents. No promises, Jake replied with a tired grin. They found lodging above a supply depot run by a weathered woman named Kate Sullivan. She was a former military engineer who had come to the frontier to escape her past. She took one look at Jake and the cloaked Lysara and quoted them a price for the room. When Jake paid without arguing, she handed them a key. I don't ask questions, Kate said simply. You don't cause trouble, we'll get along fine. Their room was small and cold, with one narrow bed, a tiny bathroom, and a window that looked out over the barren lunar surface. But it was theirs, and more importantly, it was safe. Jake found work quickly. The frontier always needed pilots and mechanics, and he had skills in both. He took odd jobs fixing broken equipment, running small cargo hauls to other settlements. The pay was decent, and no one cared who he was or where he came from. Lysara stayed hidden at first, wearing Jake's old jacket with the hood pulled up to conceal her distinctive features. But gradually she ventured out more. The frontier colonists were used to seeing strange things, and a Valerian woman walking around caused less stir than she had expected. They fell into a routine. Jake would work during the day while Lysara explored the settlement or helped Kate with inventory management. Evenings were theirs. They would sit by the small window in their room and watch the massive gas giant rotate slowly in the sky, its storms creating swirling patterns of orange and red. It is beautiful here, Lysara said one evening. Harsh, but beautiful. Yeah, Jake agreed. It's not what I expected either. What did you expect? Honestly, I thought we'd be running and hiding constantly, but this feels almost normal. Lysara leaned against him, a gesture that had become natural over the weeks. I have been thinking about the concept of home. On Velara Prime, I lived in a palace with thousands of rooms, but I never felt at home. Here, in this tiny room on a frozen moon, I feel more at home than I ever did there. That's because here you get to choose, Jake said. You're not a princess or a political piece. You're just Lysara. And you are just Jake, she replied with a smile. Not a protector or a hero, just a man who was kind enough to help a stranger. They had been teaching each other about their cultures. Lysara shared Valerian philosophy, which focused on finding balance between individual desires and collective needs. She taught him meditation techniques that helped calm his mind after long days of physical labor. In return, Jake introduced her to human art and music. He downloaded old Earth songs onto a portable player, and they would listen together in the evenings. Lysara was fascinated by human music, especially the old ballads about love and loss. Your people feel things so intensely, she observed after listening to a particularly emotional song. Valerians are taught to moderate their emotions to keep them controlled, but humans embrace the full range of feeling. Is that good or bad? Jake asked. Different, Lysara said thoughtfully. Neither better nor worse, just different. One night she taught him a Valerian song. It had no words, just a haunting melody that she hummed softly. The sound was unlike anything Jake had heard before, seeming to resonate in his chest. That's beautiful, he said when she finished. It is a song we sing to those we care about, Lysara explained, to let them know they are not alone. The peace lasted 6 weeks before Commander Thalen arrived. Jake was returning from a repair job when he saw the Valerian ship in the docking area. It was a sleek military vessel, far more advanced than anything else in the colony. His heart sank as he hurried back to the supply depot. Lysara was waiting in their room, her face calm but her eyes worried. They have found us. How do you know? I can feel it. The Royal Guard has a way of making their presence known. Commander Thalen came to their door that evening. He was an imposing figure, tall even for a Veilarian, with ceremonial armor that gleamed in the dim light. But his expression was not hostile. "Princess Lysera," he said formally, bowing slightly, "I come on behalf of your father, the Emperor. He requests your return home. And if I refuse?" Lysera asked, though she already knew the answer. "Then I have been ordered to bring you home regardless. However, I have been granted permission to allow you one day to prepare, out of respect for your situation and for the human who has protected you." Thalen glanced at Jake. "You have caused quite a stir in diplomatic circles, cargo pilot. Many admire your courage. Others think you are a fool. I get that a lot," Jake muttered. After Thalen left, Jake and Lysera sat in heavy silence. Tomorrow felt like an ending, the conclusion of something that had become more important than either of them had anticipated. "I do not want to go back," Lysera said quietly. "I know. But I must. If I do not, there will be war. Carvex will use my absence as an excuse to attack my people. Thousands will die because of my selfishness." "It's not selfish to want freedom," Jake argued, "perhaps not. But it is selfish to choose my freedom over the lives of my people." They held each other in the darkness, neither wanting to acknowledge that tomorrow would bring separation. Jake felt something breaking inside him, a pain different from any physical wound. "I have something to tell you," Lysera said softly. "Among my people, the sanctuary bond can evolve into something deeper. We call it the heart bond. It is rare, but it happens when two souls recognize each other across all barriers." "What does that mean?" Jake asked, though part of him already knew. "It means I love you, Jake Morrison. I know we come from different worlds. I know this should be impossible. But in these weeks together, you have shown me what it means to truly live. You have given me something I never thought I would have." Jake pulled back just enough to look at her face in the dim light. "I love you too, and I'm not letting you go back to marry some warlord who will treat you like property." "Then what do we do?" Jake thought about everything that had happened. He thought about the princess who had appeared in his apartment, the bond they had formed, and the life they could have if they were brave enough to fight for it. "We go back together," he said finally. "You said the heart bond is rare and sacred, right? Maybe that's our way out. Maybe if I come with you, face your father, and this Carvex directly, we can find another path." "That would be dangerous," Lysera warned. "The royal court is treacherous. They may not accept you." "Then we'll make them accept it," Jake said with more confidence than he felt. "You chose me as your protector. Time to see this through to the end." Lysera kissed him then, a gesture that sealed their decision. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The journey to Velara Prime took 3 weeks aboard Commander Thalen's ship, the Silver Dawn. Jake had never seen anything like it. The vessel seemed to blend technology and art, with walls that displayed star fields so realistic he sometimes forgot he was in a ship at all. Thalen turned out to be less hostile than Jake had expected. The commander had served the royal family for 30 years and had watched Lysera grow from a child into a woman. His loyalty was to her happiness as much as to duty. "The Emperor will not be pleased," Thalen told them during one of their evening meals, "but he is not an unreasonable man. If you can prove yourself worthy, Jake Morrison, there may be hope." "How do I prove myself to an alien emperor?" Jake asked. "By showing him what I have seen these past weeks. That you care for his daughter not because of what she is, but because of who she is. That is rarer than you might think, even among our own people." Lysera spent the journey preparing Jake for what awaited. She taught him basic Veilarian customs and etiquette, how to bow properly, which hand gestures were respectful and which were insults, the complex hierarchy of the royal court. "There are 17 levels of address depending on rank and relationship," she explained one evening. "You will need to learn at least the first 5. Jake's head spun with information. "Why is everything so complicated?" "Our civilization is over 10,000 years old," Lysera said with a small smile. "We have had a long time to make things complicated." But she also taught him about the deeper aspects of Veilarian culture, their philosophy of balance, their belief that every action created ripples that affected the whole, their understanding that true strength came from knowing when to yield and when to stand firm. "My people will judge you harshly," Lysera warned. "They will see you as primitive, lesser. You must not let their words wound you." "I've been called worse by station drunks," Jake replied. "I can handle it." When they finally arrived at Velara Prime, Jake understood why Lysera had spoken of her homeworld with such longing. The planet was breathtaking. Vast crystalline forests covered much of the surface, their translucent trees catching the light of the system's twin stars and scattering it in rainbow patterns. Cities floated on massive platforms held aloft by technology Jake could not begin to understand. The capital city, Valanthar, was the largest floating structure. It hung suspended above a deep canyon, its towers and spires reaching both up toward the sky and down into the abyss. The Imperial Palace sat at the city's heart, a building so massive it seemed impossible that it could remain airborne. As they approached, Jake felt his courage faltering. He was just a cargo pilot from Earth. What was he doing here, about to face an alien emperor and demand the right to love his daughter? Lysera must have sensed his fear. She took his hand and squeezed it gently. "Remember what you told me on New Prospect. We face this together." The palace interior was overwhelming. Halls stretched in every direction, their walls embedded with lights that pulsed in slow, hypnotic rhythms. Courtiers in elaborate dress moved through the corridors, their conversations stopping as they noticed the human walking beside their princess. Emperor Dravik Velthiran awaited them in the throne room, a vast chamber with walls that seemed to be made of solidified light. The emperor sat on a throne of crystallized energy, his expression stern and unreadable. Beside him sat Empress Salora, who watched Jake with careful eyes. Lysera bowed deeply and Jake copied her movement as best he could. When they straightened, the emperor spoke, his words translated by devices distributed throughout the room. "My daughter returns at last," Dravik said, his voice carrying no warmth, "and she brings with her the human who has caused such disruption." "Father," Lysera began, but the emperor raised a hand for silence. "I am aware of what you have done, Lysera. The sanctuary bond, the heart bond you claim to have formed, these are serious matters, not games for children to play." "I am not a child," Lysera said firmly, "and this is not a game. Jake Morrison saved my life and asked nothing in return. He protected me when he had every reason to abandon me. He is worthy of respect." Before the emperor could respond, the throne room doors opened again. A massive figure entered, flanked by armored guards. Warlord Carvex was even more intimidating in person than Jake had imagined. He stood nearly 7 feet tall, his body covered in scars from countless battles. His eyes were cold and predatory as they fixed on Lysera. "So the runaway bride returns," Carvex said, his voice like grinding stone. "And she brings a pet human. How amusing." Jake felt anger flare but kept his expression neutral. Showing emotion now would only prove he was as primitive as they believed. "Warlord Carvex," Emperor Dravik said, "you were not summoned." "No?" Carvex moved closer to the throne. "I have waited months for this marriage, Emperor. I have been patient while your daughter played at rebellion. But my patience has limits. I have come to claim what was promised to me." "I was not promised to you," Lysera said coldly. "I was sold to you like cargo." "There is a difference," Carvex laughed. "Spirited, good. You will make a fine trophy once you learn obedience." "She is not a trophy," Jake said before he could stop himself. Every eye in the room turned to him. "And what would you know of it, human?" Carvex sneered. "You are nothing. A pilot of freight ships. You have no title, no status, no worth. What could you possibly offer a princess?" Jake met the warlord's gaze steadily. "I can offer her freedom, respect, a partnership where she has a voice. Can you say the same?" The throne room fell silent. Carvex's expression darkened dangerously. He took a step toward Jake and several guards moved to intercept him, but the Emperor's voice stopped everyone. "Enough," Dravik commanded. He looked at Jake with new interest. "You speak boldly for one so outmatched, but words are cheap. If you truly believe you are worthy of my daughter, you must prove it." "How?" Jake asked. "Ancient law provides for this situation," the Emperor said slowly, as if the idea was forming as he spoke. "When two parties claim the same bond, the trial of union can be invoked. 3 tests to determine true worth. Warlord Carvex, do you accept this challenge?" Carvex smiled cruelly. "I accept. It will be amusing to watch the human fail." "Jake Morrison," the Emperor continued, "do you understand what you are agreeing to? These trials are not simple tests. They will push you to your absolute limits. Many have died attempting them." Jake looked at Lysera, whose eyes were wide with fear for him. Then he turned back to the Emperor. "I understand, and I accept." The first trial took place the following day in the Hall of Thought, a chamber filled with holographic displays and complex mathematical equations. Jake was presented with a navigation puzzle that had stumped Veilarian scholars for generations. It involved plotting a course through a region of space where normal physics did not apply consistently. Jake stared at the problem for a long time. The Veilarian approach was to calculate every variable, to account for every possible outcome, but Jake had learned early in his career that sometimes the answer was not to be smarter, but to be more adaptable. Instead of trying to plot one perfect course, he created a flexible algorithm that could adjust in real time to changing conditions. It was not elegant or sophisticated, but when tested, it worked. The Veilarian scholars watched in amazement as his crude but effective solution proved successful, where their refined approaches had failed. The second trial was combat. Jake faced a simulation where he was outnumbered 10-1 by enemy fighters. He had no military training, no experience with advanced weapons. But he had survived the Krevath attack, and he had learned something important. Sometimes survival was more important than victory. He did not try to defeat all the enemies. Instead, he focused on protecting a central objective, using terrain and clever positioning to minimize his disadvantages. He took hits, accumulated damage, but he never gave up. When the simulation finally ended, he was barely standing, but the objective was secure. Carvex watched with grudging respect. The human has courage, at least. But courage alone is not enough. The third trial was the test of heart. Jake was brought before the assembled court and asked to speak about why he believed his bond with Lysera was genuine. This was the moment Jake had been dreading. He was not good with words, not comfortable with grand speeches, but as he stood before hundreds of Veilarians with Lysera watching him hopefully, he found his voice. "I cannot offer military alliances or political advantages," he began. "I cannot give your empire anything it does not already have. I am just a cargo pilot who hauls freight across space. By your standards, I am nobody." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "But I know what it means to be alone. I know what it feels like to have no one who understands you, no one who sees you for who you really are. When Lysera came into my life, she was not a princess to me. She was just a person who needed help, a person who wanted freedom." Jake's voice grew stronger. "These past weeks I've learned who she really is. She is brilliant and brave. She is kind but not weak. She dreams of exploring the stars and mapping the unknown. She loves music and philosophy and arguments about whether coffee is actually drinkable." A few in the crowd actually smiled at that. Jake continued, "Warlord Carvex can offer you power and protection, but he cannot offer Lysera herself anything except chains. I can offer her a partnership, a life where—" The throne room remained silent as Lysera stepped forward. Jake could see the weight of her decision in every movement. She was about to give up everything she had been born to, every privilege and protection that came with being a princess of the Veilarian Empire. "I, Lysera Velthirin, third princess of Velara Prime, formally renounce my claim to the throne," she said clearly. Her voice did not waver. "I renounce my titles, my position, and my place in the line of succession. I choose to forge my own path." Emperor Dravek's expression was pained, but he nodded slowly. "So witnessed and recorded. From this moment you are no longer a princess of this empire. You are simply Lysera, free to make your own choices and live with their consequences." Warlord Carvex stepped forward, his face twisted with rage. "This is unacceptable. We had an agreement, Emperor. My alliance was conditional on this marriage." "The agreement was conditional on my daughter's willingness," Dravek corrected coldly. "She has made her choice clear. If you wish to continue our alliance on other terms, my advisors will negotiate. If not, then we part ways peacefully. But you will not have my daughter." For a moment it seemed Carvex might attack. His hand moved toward his weapon and Jake tensed, ready to defend Lysera despite having no chance against the warlord. But then Carvex laughed, a bitter sound. "Keep her human," he said. "She would have been more trouble than she was worth anyway." He turned to the Emperor. "We will discuss new terms for our alliance. But know this, the price has just increased significantly." As Carvex stormed from the throne room, Empress Silora approached Jake and Lysera. Up close, Jake could see tears in the Empress's eyes, though her expression remained composed. "You have chosen a difficult path, my daughter," she said softly, "but I believe it is the right one. You were always meant for more than political marriages and court ceremonies." She removed a pendant from around her neck. a crystalline ornament that glowed with soft inner light. This has been in our family for 20 generations. It is yours now to carry a piece of your home with you wherever you go. Lysara accepted the gift, her own eyes glistening. Thank you, Mother. The Empress turned to Jake. Take care of her, human. Not because she needs protection, but because everyone needs someone who cares. I will, Jake promised. Over the next few days, Lysara said her goodbyes. Her younger siblings, who she had always protected and guided, were heartbroken but supportive. Her older brother, heir to the throne, gave Jake a long, measuring look before finally nodding in acceptance. Commander Thalen pledged that he would watch over the family and ensure no harm came to Lysara, even from afar. You have proven yourself worthy, Jake Morrison, he said. That is no small feat. Emperor Dravek granted them one final audience before their departure. He gave them a small ship, the Starweaver, fast and well-equipped. He also provided them with enough credits to start their new life comfortably. I do not agree with your choice, he told Lysara quietly, but I respect it. You have always been the most stubborn of my children. I suppose I should have expected this. I learned from the best, father, Lysara replied with a small smile. For just a moment, the stern emperor's mask cracked, and he embraced his daughter. Be safe, be happy. That is all a father can truly wish for his child. Jake and Lysara left Velara Prime 3 days later. As the planet receded behind them, Lysara stood at the viewing port watching her homeworld disappear. Any regrets? Jake asked, standing beside her. No, she said firmly. For the first time in my life, I am exactly where I want to be. They returned to human space with a plan. Using the resources Emperor Dravek had provided and support from both human and Valarian contacts, they established a small trading company. But this was not just about profit. Their business became a bridge between the two civilizations, facilitating cultural exchange and mutual understanding. They settled on a frontier world called Haven's Rest, located in the neutral zone between human and Valarian space. The planet was beautiful in a stark way, with red deserts and deep canyons. It was perfect for their purposes, far enough from major centers of power that they could build something new without interference. Their settlement grew quickly. Other mixed couples began arriving, humans and Valarians who had found love across species lines. Engineers, artists, scientists, all people who wanted to live outside the constraints of their respective societies. Haven's Rest became a symbol of what was possible when people chose connection over division. Jake continued piloting, but now Lysara worked beside him as navigator. Her stellar cartography skills proved invaluable, and together they charted new routes through unexplored space. Their partnership was perfect, complementing each other's strengths and supporting each other's weaknesses. One evening, 6 months after settling on Haven's Rest, they sat on the porch of their home watching the sunset. The sky turned shades of purple and gold, colors neither Earth nor Velara Prime could match. I received a message today, Lysara said carefully. From my mother. Jake looked at her questioningly. They had not heard from the royal family since leaving Velara Prime. She says my father has been thinking. The relationship between our peoples has improved significantly because of what we have done here. The cultural exchange programs, the mixed settlements, all of it has reduced tensions and increased understanding. That's good news, Jake said, though he sensed there was more. She has asked if I would accept a position as unofficial ambassador to the frontier colonies. No formal power, but significant symbolic importance. It would allow me to continue building bridges between our peoples while maintaining my independence. What do you want to do? Jake asked. Lysara smiled. I want to accept. Not because I miss being a princess, but because I want to continue this work. We have started something important here, Jake. Something that could change the future for both our civilizations. Then we'll do it, Jake said simply. Together. A year after leaving Velara Prime, Jake and Lysara stood on the same porch watching the same spectacular sunset. But this time, Lysara's hand rested on her slightly rounded belly. Are you frightened? Jake asked softly. Terrified, Lysara admitted. No one has ever had a child who is both human and Valarian. We do not know what to expect. Then we'll figure it out as we go, Jake said, placing his hand over hers. Just like everything else, they had learned that their child would be the first of her kind, carrying the genetic heritage of two species that had evolved on worlds light years apart. Doctors from both civilizations were fascinated and eager to help ensure a healthy pregnancy. News of the pregnancy spread quickly. It became a symbol of hope, proof that despite all their differences, humans and Valarians were not so different after all. Both the human government and the Valarian Empire pledged support, eager to see this bridge between their peoples made literal in the form of a child. But for Jake and Lysara, the pregnancy was not about politics or symbolism. It was about creating a family, about bringing a new life into the universe who would be loved and cherished. They stood together as the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, the same stars that humans and Valarians had gazed at for millennia from their respective worlds. Those stars no longer seemed quite so distant or foreign. Jake thought back to the night that had changed everything, the night he had come home exhausted to find an alien princess sitting on his couch. It felt like a lifetime ago, though it had been less than 2 years. If someone had told him then that he would fall in love with that princess, that he would face trials and dangers beyond anything he had imagined, that he would help create a new settlement bridging 2 civilizations and start a family that represented hope for the future, he would have laughed at the impossibility of it all. But here he stood living that impossible life, and it was better than anything he could have dreamed. "What are you thinking about?" Lysara asked, leaning against him. "I was thinking about the night we met," Jake said. "How terrified I was. How sure I was that my life was about to become incredibly complicated." "And was it?" Lysara asked with a smile. "Absolutely," Jake replied. "But it was also the best thing that ever happened to me." They watched the stars together in comfortable silence. Below them, the settlement of Haven's Rest glowed with warm lights as people from 2 different worlds went about their evening routines, living and working together in peace. Somewhere out in that vast galaxy, there were still problems to solve, conflicts to resolve, and challenges to face. The relationship between humanity and the Valarian Empire remained complex, with hardliners on both sides still viewing the other with suspicion. But every day, more people were choosing understanding over fear, cooperation over conflict, and it had all started with one simple choice: a human cargo pilot deciding to help a stranger in need, regardless of the consequences. "Jake?" Lysara said softly. "Yeah? Thank you for saying yes that first night. Thank you for honoring the sanctuary bond when you could have refused. Thank you for choosing me." Jake pulled her closer. "Thank you for choosing me first. For seeing something in a nobody cargo pilot that made you think I was worth the trouble. You were never nobody," Lysara said firmly. "You were always exactly who I needed you to be. A good man willing to do the right thing even when it was hard." As the night deepened and the stars grew brighter, they went.